Hi, I'm Bob Dixon. Welcome to the Leader's Edge Hot Takes edition of the Five Eagles Insight Podcast. For over 3 decades, I served in the military as an engineer and as a strategist, and I learned a few things about leadership. We know that it goes beyond theory. It's about real-world application. So in this series, sponsored by Five Eagles Leadership, we feature industry leaders and share their leadership journeys with you. My mission's simple. It's to help you become the best leader you can be. Now, if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to be considered as a guest in upcoming episodes, please go to 5eaglesleadership.com/interview and apply today. Now, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Leader's Edge podcast. My name is Marisa McClure, and joining me today is Sam Pepin. Sam is joining us from Montreal, Canada, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Core Centrica. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for being here today.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, great. So I'm going to dive right into some questions so we can hear all about your business. So to start us off, give me a 90-second or so overview of your business and why you got into it.
Absolutely. So Core Centrica is a full-service marketing agency with the premise and the perhaps desirable outcomes of merging neuroscience with data-driven initiatives, which we call basically meaningful marketing. What we found for my first business, which was a business marketplace, basically utilizing data pretty much only, is the more human beings communicate with computers, the more we sound like them, look like them, and therefore, unfortunately, lose our true spark and our true intuition, which makes us valuable as human beings. So the concept of meaningful marketing is to help companies, we have SMEs all the way to corporate clients actually, to not only better understand what makes their business valuable and therefore help to communicate it, but also utilize it in a way in which we can basically have sustainable results and sustainable growth, not only from a profits perspective, but also from an impact perspective. So that's why we're in business. We're in business to revolutionize the way not only that marketing is understood, but also felt and experienced.
Okay. And how did you get into this work?
I started in business when I was 16 and a half years old. I was in the midst of COVID, and I was wanting to work on a high income skills. So I grabbed a sales position in a digital marketing agency in a remote fashion. It was the big trend of remote, Saturn closer. I'm sure you recall that time. And I did actually very, very well with them and was able to basically get a book of contact and get some endorsement that allowed me to find my first co-partner. And from that first basically co-partner, I was able to launch his first business, which now was able to merge with Core Creative Group and became Core Centrica about 14 months basically ago. So quite a rapid journey from on my side. Always been somebody able to understand what's necessary for making things happen and able to leverage that for others basically benefits.
That's great. I mean, what a start at such a young age. And it sounds like some of the challenges of COVID actually ended up being beneficial for you.
That's what I found in life in general, actually. Failures is just, in my opinion, a lack of recognitions of what success truly is. From my perspective, COVID gave me everything. Gave me a chance to start, a chance to understand that actually money also and how money is generated and money is perhaps optimized can be completely virtual without meeting anyone at any time in person, which has its downside, but still completely changed my mindset of what it was to be valuable from an economical sense of the term. So I think that most of the time in life, sometimes what you think are bottoms and failures are actually a fantastic step forward.
Interesting. So we're going to come back to failures in a little bit because I want to talk a little bit more about that because I think it's such a big part of our leadership journeys, right, is having those challenges along the way. So we'll come back to that.
Absolutely.
First, let's hear, what do you think is the biggest problem in your industry and how are you working to solve that for your clients?
Yes, absolutely. The biggest problem in my industry is, and it's actually a double-edged word, is that the barrier to entry is so low that unfortunately the quality of work, specifically at an affordable cost, is extremely rare and extremely hard to find. And therefore, our abilities to merge basically both neuroscience with data-driven initiatives to create actually tangible outcomes and in a way in which is completely done for you, in a way in which is way much basically taking care of the relationship side of things is things that are very much lacking in this industry where, for example, AI is taking over. And AI is fantastic. It allows you to be a much more productive and effective person, but only and only if you retain not only the integrity, but also the morality and what makes you a human being, which is, again, intuitions, love, emotions, anything that creates experiences and relationships. So that's how we solve basically such an issue, is that for us, marketing is not only about impacting bottom line, it's also about an understanding that on the other side of that contract is another human beings, that life can be changed through your services.
Yeah, I like that you really keep that human element in mind, because as we, just in general across industry are moving towards more technology, a lot more integration of AI, and I think you lose that personal aspect a little bit with that. So yeah.
Yes, I do think so as well. There's a blind, it's a fine line to not cross, but our true abilities is, first of all, from a team perspective, over 100 years basically of combined experience from a marketing standpoint, which is truly fantastic. Being able to basically combine the dynamics of having a young CEO with a very, very established, very seasoned tribe of implementers is a thing that you rarely see in any industry, but not only we're able to do so, but also within an industry where it's typically one or the other. If you take a look at other agencies, either it's a young tribe getting started, which is fantastic and God bless them, and there's also the other side of that equation, which are the very established players, but unfortunately, in my opinion, still lacking the dynamics and the flexibility that we can operate with from our model.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference to have those different perspectives all involved in the leadership of your organization, right? Yeah. Awesome. So who is your ideal client, and what are the major outcomes they can expect from working with you?
Yes, that's a great question. Our typical, basically, ideal clients are one of two things: either funded startups or people in companies in which have recently acquired the funds necessary for them to be able to expand their business. Typically, those will be very important for us because as meaningful marketing unfolds, our objective is not only to make the most of these funds, but also having the peace of mind of doing so in ways in which you understand that marketing doesn't take a day or two. I know they're trying to sell you such a dream, but it is a smoke show. And from that perspective, obviously some funds are required. The other niches as well are very established businesses. Inc. 5000 businesses, we already have a few Fortune 500 businesses actually as clients. So the objective with those is obviously as their branding are already top notch, already world class. If not, they wouldn't be basically where they are. It's very much about specific campaigns. So we either act as an extension of their business development basically departments, or just become it completely for smaller companies. The outcome that are typically generated is a few things. First of all, we do everything in-house, so we don't outsource anything. We're not a broker type of marketing agency, which not only will increase the effectiveness of our services, but also the cost, basically the cost to value, what I like to call it, which is very, very high because we are able to stay lean and mean, as my co-founder would say. And from that perspective, there's that, so the effectiveness. There's also basically, it's a very hands-on process. So we work with companies in which want to experience what it feels like to be in a rooms with a full of professionals, full of people in which been able to be in marketing now for decades. And therefore, we also basically come across this in a very relationship-first type of way. Our goal is to treat every single one of our clients like they're the only one, and also to do so forever, so as long as possible, perhaps. And therefore, some of the outcomes would be one, increase basically top line revenue. So a bunch of campaigns that we did are have a true emphasis on basically scaling basically a new products, scaling a new offerings. Most of the time also, it could be something specifically for bigger companies. It could be some type of exhibitions where they want to showcase something very good to their target audience. So that's one. And the second thing is impact. A lot of people come to us and say, Sam, I want to have a very stable business. I love it, but I love my impact to be felt a bit more. How do we increase the visibility and promotions so that we can actually achieve our true desires, which is to make our purpose extend above and beyond our businesses? What I found, Marisa, is that we get in business typically because we want to solve a problems of any sorts. Maybe you have a product to do so, a service to do that, or even other resources to do that. But when you're in alignment with your purpose, when you're in alignment with things that are true, not only to yourself, but the value you want to deliver, that's the power of meaningful marketing. Is we won't tell you to do X, Y, Z because your competitors are doing so. We will tell you to do X, Y, Z because you are so unique and therefore your marketing should be.
Yeah, I like that. So really looking for what is it that the client needs, what's going to be the best for them, and really focusing in on that. That's great. I was going to ask, my next question was going to be what makes you unique and how you provide these things to your client. I think you've already touched on it a little bit. You talked about being lean and mean, which I love. Is there anything else that you haven't mentioned yet that makes you unique in how you service your clients?
Yes. Well, the first thing as well, which maybe not, I wouldn't say unique, but it's unique in the way we operate within it, is we start as a consultancy before becoming an implementation partner. So the interesting thing with the model that we have is the primary research is extremely important. As we're bridging basically two humongous world together, we have the obviously the neurobiological, basically neuroscientific portion of it, which we know more about our partnership with the Learning Code Institute. But for the data portion of our equations, there's a lot of market research involved. So a lot of brand basically development, a lot of market research. So we have a process in which is one that is very, very detailed. And that's also something that we tell our clients. We are not the get rich quick type of scheme. We are quite the opposite actually. We're gonna get slowly there, but actually we're gonna actually get there, which is better than most. And that's basically how we operate. And again, I wouldn't say that's completely unique. It's more about how intentional we are towards that I think is more on the unique side. And the fact as well that since we're a full service marketing agency, we bring some of the best people in the whole world within that team that can serve you within different lanes of marketing. For example, Google PPC or creating a website. That's two completely different skills, even if it's marketing. So you get basically a one-stop shop for something as large as marketing and as effective and potentially life-changing as what you're trying to achieve.
Awesome. So one-stop shop, and you're in it for the long haul. So that's great. It's a good compliment.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things to do, so might as well take some time and do it right.
Absolutely. I'm definitely a big believer in that. So where do you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, and how are you staying on top of that?
I see every single businesses becoming some type of technology businesses. We live in a world now that you either involved with technology or you become irrelevant. And that's not a personal opinion of mine. That's just a reflection of where I think the market is headed. And therefore, there's a couple of insights that are very interesting. The first thing that you want to understand is anything that you can automate, anything that you can duplicate to technology without losing quality, which is very important, you should do it. And that's the bottom line. Not later, try to do it as effectively and as rapidly as possible. So that's point number one. Systems are now not an add-on to a business. They are an absolute must-have. And if you don't have them, your competitors will outpace you. So that's the one way in which I see the industry perhaps evolving, which it's already the case, but it's going to be more and more basically flagrant as time goes along, that if you don't have any abilities from a technical standpoint, you'll get left in the dust. The second thing as well is there's this incredible book called obviously Good to Great, which I recommend to everybody. And truly, the understanding of what great mean will be completely redefined in the next 2 to 3 years, because we now are in a transition period where there's a lot of new technology, where there's a first basically to markets in which benefit for some things the innovators and the early adapters. But as this will fades out with things like AI, then there will be another transition phase from the good to the great. The good will all die and only a few players will survive. That's always the name of any game, and will continue to do so, not only in marketing, but any industry. So that be prepared for that, be proactive, understand that if you are first to market right now, that's fantastic and capitalize on that. But then also find a way in which you can go a little bit outside the box and say, well, all right, in 2 to 3 years from now, we're gonna have a lot of companies doing very similar things. How do we stay basically relevant? How do we stay proactive towards not only what makes us specials, but how to duplicate such things in a way in which we can thrive in the long run? Obviously, if you're not trying to be acquired, if you're building to sell, that's another conversation. But those are the main two things that I see. The proactive versus the reactive, and the understanding that any businesses will need to be somewhat of a technology businesses in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and I really like how you said, you're going to need to automate without losing quality, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I like that you included that. So that's a good thought. Okay, and I wrote down the book, so good recommendation. I'll have to check that one out. Good to great. Got it down.
Incredible book.
All right, so we're back to the failure topic. So the question around it is, what is your biggest failure or challenge thus far in your life, and how has that helped shape the way that you do business?
Right. My biggest challenge in business, obviously, is one in which is actually very common, and you get a lot of wisdom if you're listening to this right now. Most of the time, what happens is I scored a very quick win with my first business and was able to exit in a very, very in a beautiful way, actually, that positioned me very well. And from that, actually, I lost track and I lost the understanding that I needed other people to be successful, especially as a young man. And I'm speaking only for young men because I am one. You get to this place of mind where you think you know it all. You think that you can do it all by yourself because you think you did, even though you truly didn't. You were just not understanding that other people were there along the way with you. So within that transitions and within basically 2024, which was a first year pilot for Centrica, the understanding basically how to manage PEDs, which I love. I'm a very, very speedy guy. But also understanding that not only basically that could affect the culture, but that could also affect your long-term basically objectives and goals. True, that was my biggest challenge and my biggest basically failure was to misrecognize the understanding that I am not God nor am I a superhero, and therefore I need people along the way to actually assist me in my weaknesses, because that's how basically any companies are built. So I love this African actually quote, which I never found an author. If somebody has, I'd love to hear it. But it's alone you go fast, together we go far. Which is a very famous one for a good reason, because it's exceptional, it's very good. And that's something that was my biggest failure, was to misrecognize that with that first win, I thought that I could just basically do both fast and go far alone, which is simply impossible.
Yes. Well, I definitely agree with everything that you said. I was in the military for a long time, and that is definitely an industry, I guess, to use that term, where you have to work together as a team. No one person can accomplish the mission alone. And I think I can relate to your journey with that one, because when you're a junior officer, you think that everything has to be done a certain way, it has to be your way. And then you realize, as you get more and more responsibility over time, which is inevitable, that you can't do it alone and you have to rely on people. So the key is to surround yourself with the right people, people that you work well with, and together you're going to be able to accomplish that mission. So I love everything that you said, and just acknowledging that you had help along the way, even if it's little things. that aren't present in mind. Like, I think you do pick up a lot along the way from a lot of supporters, both within the business and outside, just in supporting you personally as you're going through some of these journeys, right?
Yes, being self-made is a lie, and don't fall for it. That being said, I'm sure you will relate to this. One of my a great mentor is actually from the military as well, and he told me one thing one day that marked me for life. We were sitting down in Las Vegas at the previous Super Bowl in 2024, and it was an extraordinary time. And we were talking about life and all sorts of great things. And I was asking him about his stay in the military, because it's always been something that I'm always, it's not my path, but I always admire basically people that chose such a path. And I was always basically wanting more details about, well, how is it to lead in the military compared to leading in basically business, for example. And he said, well, the first thing is the stake are much higher, right? It's not just profit and loss, it's you may die. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing is that, and he told me this, he looked at me in the eyes, incredible gentleman, multimillionaire, and he said, the one thing that I always felt during my whole stay there is living by this quote, which is, I will die. I know I would die for you because I know you would die for me, and that's a level of proximity that very few people get to experience ever with anyone. But within the setting of a potential war or military in general, there's so much insights to that line of thought, that ideology, and it's one in which I live by. I surround myself with people in which I believe would die for me, and therefore I will die for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that you had someone as a mentor like that that's very impactful for you. And I think that's important no matter what stage you are, to always have a mentor. Have you started taking on anyone else as a mentee? Do you provide mentorship to others?
I do, yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
I have a few mentee, and I have plenty of mentor. And I totally agree with you. The greatest people always have mentors, even when they feel like they're on top of the food chain. They always have mentors, and that's something that I actually misunderstood when I was coming up in this business world. I thought you got to a stage where you were the know-it-all and therefore didn't need anybody else, which is why, again, that's where my biggest failure came by. But what I feel and what I absolutely adore is the bigger stages that I do, the biggest networking event that I go to, the more billionaires I sit down with, it always come back to the same thing. They're the people in which first fail the most, and two, learn the most. I had the chance to sit down with a few very well-known people that I won't mention by names for their privacy, but it's always amazing how little they talk. They talk the least always, and that's how they get the most information by the other people within their environments.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an element of humility to that, right? And just understanding that we all will always have room to learn and grow, no matter what stage we are in life, in business, and whatever. So yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Awesome. So what is your next area of growth, whether it's just professionally for you or for your business?
Yeah, a few things. Well, first of all, is to truly reorganize the internal operations to allow us to scale to even bigger figures, and therefore being able to help even more people. So that's the main thing business wise. As we were experiencing this workload, in which was way past basically our ability to fulfill. Our objective was to truly, we made that transition late 2024 to scale down a little bit so we can basically formulate a model in which we can basically go higher with, which we were able to do very successfully. So we just taking on a director of operations and making sure that we're basically continuing on to owning in on what will make us world class, which is the delivery. There's this great, I don't recall his exact name, but I went to his conference and he said, great delivery will beat a great product anytime. And it's obviously, if you can have both, obviously have both. But the simple premise is just that you need something that is duplicatable for your company to thrive. If you're not able to do so, unfortunately, not only will you lose in effectiveness, but also you will not be able to pick up the necessary momentum for your company to truly become what it can be. So that's what's next from a business standpoint. On a personal standpoint, always obviously being closer to God. That's always number one in my book. Fortuning basically more personal relationship with my loved ones. That was my biggest resolution of 2025, was make times, not find times. We all have times if we decide to do so, to call a friend, to call a loved one, to sit down for dinner and meet my mother more often and so on. So that's my most important personal goals, is to understand how can I have a more harmonious life, perhaps.
I love that, and good for your mom that you're wanting to spend more time with her. That's amazing. I have a 15-year-old son, so he's kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. But hopefully, as the years go by, he'll come back around and want to spend more time with me.
I was
Giving me
15
hope.
one day. I was 15 myself, and perhaps yes, there is this teenage phase where, again, and that's a superhero journey, and actually I think it's very necessary. So I don't blame him at all for him. Quite the opposite. But
Yeah.
because you need that superhero journey to give you the confidence to actually act. And then once you act, actually God breaks you multiple times, and therefore you understand that, whoa, all right, this it won't work this way. I got burned once. Let me try to not get burned twice, and therefore you become much wiser. That's the quest of life.
Yeah, I honestly love that he's finding his independence, because to me that is I've done something right, that he's getting, to that point where he's ready to be more independent from me. So I think that's a success story. But yeah, I appreciate that perspective from you. Okay, one last question, to kind of more of a fun one. If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would you choose?
That's actually an interesting one. For me, would be Jesus, without any hesitation. Actually, not just for what he obviously represents for the religion that I practice and own and basically hold very very close to my heart and shape my lives, but also because, in many ways, and I say this actually with the most respect, Jesus is now a symbol of what greatness is a symbol of what morality is, and is a person in which, first of all, lived only a few decades, and actually had a ministry for only a few years, not a few decades, and still remains, if not the most important, one of the most important figures even in this modern world, where everything seems to change every 15 minutes, yet Jesus is right around the corner. So there's a novelty about that, and there's obviously a grace and in my opinion, undebatable wisdom in the way he lived life and was able to impact billions of people through it. Truly, in my opinion, the greatest human being of all time.
Well, that is an excellent choice, and I think we could all use a little more grace in our worlds. So, yeah, that's a great choice. Okay.
We definitely could, and actually, what I always tell everybody, and I'm a big practitioner of such things, and not to get too religious here, but from an ideology standpoint, whenever you are, wherever you are, whatever you believe in, I love all moral people dearly, and that's exactly what Jesus' quest was, and so that's actually a movement of being united, and therefore let's do so for all people and all walks of life, without any differentiations based on anything but moral character.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Okay, so to wrap us up, what is the best way for people to contact you if they want to work with you, if they want to learn more about your business? How can they track you down?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. We're very, very active on LinkedIn, Sam Pepin, Pepin. I also basically have a personal email that you can do for personal inquiries, which is sam@sampepin.com, or a professional email, which is sam@corecentrica.com for any direct inquiries. You may also find me basically on pretty much all podcast platform with the Meaningful Podcast, and that could be some great conversations as well to hopefully make you a more complete and more purposeful human beings, which is our quest there. And that's about it. I really appreciate your time and the opportunities for me to speak to such a beautiful audience.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing a little bit about your business and your leadership journey. It's been a great conversation.
God bless you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Leader's Edge Hot Take Series. I hope you found today's insight meaningful, valuable, and that you're ready to put them into action. Now, if you enjoyed the episode and want to keep improving your leaderships, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I post new content every week, packed with strategies, tips, and real-life examples to help you lead with impact. And remember, great leadership isn't just about guiding others, it's about continuously growing yourself. If you'd like to be considered as a guest for upcoming episodes, please go to 5eaglesleadership.com/interview to apply today. Keep pushing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next episode. Be awesome.